We are now live.
Good afternoon and welcome to the April 2nd, 2025 Intergovernmental Relations Committee. We are now live being recorded. We have of the committee members, we have Councilor Evans and myself. We also have the mayor who sits in on these, and we have Ethan Nelson, who is our IGR manager. First of all, call the meeting to order. And are there any additions or amendments to the agenda?
Councilor Gross, there's one item that I'd like to just add to the legislative update regarding a request from the University of Oregon. So I can just hold it on it.
Okay. Very good. So we'll add the U of O piece to item number 3, legislative update. With that said, we've reviewed the agenda. Is there a motion to approve the minutes from the March 5th, 2024 meeting?
So moved.
Is that, just a second, let's back up. Is that correct? Is that March 2024 or should that be 2025?
25.
25. Thank you.
Okay, I'll amend that. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
I move approval.
I guess I
You have
all
to
that's
second.
left, so I'll second it. Is there any, do we accept that? I vote yes.
Vote yes.
Okay, that's 2 in favor. Okay. Move on to item number 3, the 2025 legislative update. Ethan.
Great. Okay, I will add in your packet, there was on March 19th, there's a legislative visit with Mayor Knutsen's schedule, and there's some photos including from meetings. And so, Mayor, do you want to share any insights as to from the 19th, the meetings that we were able to have?
Sure, just to say overall, was a pleasure to be up in Salem with staff and carrying forward council's legislative priorities for this session, and great conversations with all of our local representatives and senators, as well as other committee chairs, state leadership. Wonderful to see the way that our local public servants are working hard up in Salem. And it was a busy time because it was right before their essentially procedural milestone with any of the bills that are hoping to move forward and now have moved forward. So I think it was a very productive day. Great for me to be able to talk with people about our shelter priorities, economic development, and Clear Lake. That conversation was a centerpiece in most of our discussions, which was is wonderful because I think folks are also well aware that that's been a long-term effort to be able to think about investing in that part of Northwest Eugene in that way. And then some great conversations about housing as well. So we will continue this work, but full day, many trips up and down the fire stairs, and lots of short, intense meetings, but great.
I was impressed with your schedule.
Thank you.
That was pretty darn aggressive. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for being up there and representing us. I'm sure you did a wonderful job. And I think it's also good to be building those relationships. I know you had relationships established with many of our legislators already, but in your new capacity as mayor, I think is really a great opportunity for all of us. So thank you.
Yes, of course. And thank you to staff for all of the coordination that went into building this very tight schedule. A lot of effort just to make all that happen in those windows.
When we set the date, we were two weeks out, I think, and Zach and I we hustled around, and I think within an afternoon we came back together and we put this schedule together, and we looked at each other, oh wow, we were able to do it, because a lot of times it's like, no, we can't get anybody in here. And I did twist a few arms to be able to say it. The mayor's coming, can we just fit us in somewhere? They're like, oh, we can move around. So yes, it was good schedule.
Well, thank you for your work on that. Important.
And I think that what it does is it helps our legislators and also legislators who are chairs of committees recognize Eugene's commitment, engagement, and have good conversations related to where our priorities are, and just continue to build those relationships on them. I'm gonna jump on into then the March 31st legislative priorities updates document. And all we're gonna, so most of this is pro forma, and there's not a lot of new things. The updates are in yellow. So going along through our priorities, unhoused response funding, House Bill 3644, it's moved out of committee and down to Ways and Means with a due pass recommendation. And so that has a $217 million budget allocation or appropriate proposal. And so that's where it goes to Ways and Means. We'll see the co-chairs when we met with Speaker Fahey. She said that there was less money available for housing, including shelter dollars, than there were in the previous biennium. Yet there's still work to be done to adopt and the final budget. So
Is that due to changes in the federal government, or is it other things, or is it a combination?
I think that it's a combination of, when we spoke with the speaker, she was, they're very concerned, state budget writers are very concerned that the impacts from federal reductions will have a really big impact. And so they're looking at what are all of the areas that could be impacted from a reduction in federal dollars, and then how to reallocate general fund dollars to support those core pieces. And so a lot of it has to do related to Oregon Health Plan. And so if there's a reduction there, then they will likely move some general fund dollars on over to supplement those losses or fill in those losses. And so we'll see how, and we've had very strong budget forecasts the past two rounds. There will be one in May, and I think that that's really the pieces that the budget writers and the leadership is being cautious related to what's going to happen from federal reductions.
Well, and since this just happened on Monday, 20,000 employees at HHS being laid off, there hasn't been any, thumbnail analysis of how that ultimately affects us down the line here in the state, correct?
Correct.
Or- yeah.
Yeah.
So we have no clue yet as to, how that's going to affect the flow of funds. I know that in education, they peeled back, $2.5 million in funding to ODE. And there may be more coming down the line on that.
Yeah.
From the feds.
Yeah, and so Brooke and I had a conversation prior to today's meeting related to a federal update, and I think that there's moving pieces. We're conducting some internal work to get a sense of where we are vulnerable as a city related to federal funds. There's also then this trickle down related to federal funds that come to the state that then would either support state run programs that operate in our community, or fund the county, which are programs that operate in our community. And so there might not necessarily be a direct impact to city programs, but there would be a direct impact to the community, indirectly to the city. So, and then on top of that, and I sent out some information, and I'll make it on here, is that Attorney General Rayfield is doing a series of town halls and he'll be in Eugene on the night in the evening next week at PLC 180 over on the UVO campus. And the Attorney General the legislature appropriated, I think, between $4 and $6 million out of the emergency fund, out of the emergency board fund. I think it was in December, with the recognition that there was likely going to be litigation. And so they appropriated that money, gave it to the Attorney General's office to be able to staff up and then be able to take part in legal suits. And so what's happening is that there will be a shutdown of funds from an executive order, and then there's a lawsuit And until that lawsuit is settled and enforced, then those funds may just not flow. And so that's where we're also seeing that the actions related at the state level related to addressing some of these potential budget shortfalls will likely be slower than when that funding would generally come on in. So there'll be. So in that, I think the state budget writers are trying to figure out how do we land something budget in ostensibly at the same time the city council is going to be levying a budget. Our two biennial budgets are aligned now in the end of June that is somewhat stable based upon what's coming from the federal.
So would they be dipping into reserves to close some of those gaps, or?
Potentially, I mean, I think that they're looking at a lot of different ways to make sure that Oregonians protected. Okay, keep moving forward on the Clear Lake Road infrastructure as Mayor Knutson had shared. We had a lot of conversations about that. I submitted to the Legislative Fiscal Office LFO our capital construction request last week and sent it out to our delegation and the co-chairs. They haven't scheduled when the lottery bonds will be up for public hearing, but when they do, Mayor Knutson will be given, and generally it's the cattle call. So there's there's a lot of people in a public hearing, a lot of people testifying remotely, and everybody gets 1 minute.
1 minute.
Yeah, usually they're like, well, we got 3 minutes, and then they start in and they're like, oh, no, we're gonna cut it to 1 minute. So here's our project. Thanks. So that'll happen, but we're just moving through that process. The number 3 state support or support state investment in behavioral health systems. So 2056, that was the one that would provide additional funding for community health programs, including mobile crisis response. It's scheduled for a work session on the 3rd, so tomorrow. And so that'll probably get voted out of committee, but then it'll go to Ways and Means, get on into the budget churn. Lane County, they were unable to get the 23-25 bienniums allocations put into the rebalancing bill, which was in Senate Bill 5550. And so now they're working on seeking potentially lottery bonds or general fund dollars for the capital costs for the Behavioral Health Stabilization Center. We submitted a letter. I wrote one for Mayor Knutson. We submitted it on behalf of the city council because it is a council priority to Lane County. Lane County as part of their package, and Lane County also gave us a letter of support. So we've been regionally supportive. Mayor?
I'll just say that one thing that has been helpful in public conversations about these legislative priorities is many people don't know what a stabilization center is. But when you talk about our work to support the expansion of behavioral health system capacity or access to those services within our community, people understand. And so I offer that only because I think, there are a handful of proper nouns attached to a center that are not typical points of discussion, but this fits into a much bigger statewide set of investments related to increasing that capacity locally. So
I found there's confusion out there as well. So back to the communication piece.
So support increased protections related to threats to public officials. This bill is actually up for a work session at 3 o'clock today. And so I've been checking in with Senator Brzezinski and his staff, and it's like, yep, we're moving the bill. It should be getting out of committee this week and onto the Senate floor, and then we'll move on over to the House side. Lots of support for it. The secure authority for local governments to prohibit firearms in public buildings. So Senate Bill 698 had been a vehicle. That section got pulled on out and put into a gut and stuff of Senate Bill 243. That had a public hearing on the 27th in Senate Judiciary. I gave testimony in support of and we also, Mayor Knutson had drafted written a letter on behalf of City Council, and that was submitted into the record as well. They're going to have a work session tomorrow, and it'll probably be moved out of committee on it. Probably a partisan vote. And then improvements to the ground emergency medical transportation system. So 3572. That's an EMS, this larger bill. It's kind of the 2.0 that had a public hearing and a work session scheduled for tomorrow. And then I've talked with Deputy Chief Heffel, and he continues to work with OHA and the Fire Chiefs Association to address the issues administratively that OHA can address related to the GEMT program. So, so on both fronts, there's action happening. And I think it seems to be checking with Chris. I think it seems to be steady forward. Any questions on our priorities? No? Okay, moving forward on priority one bills, just 2333. It's a property tax item. No action yet. We've been working with Representative Nathanson, finance staff, and LOC, and I think we're going to be able to get something by the end of the session that's going to be substantial and allow us to, in the interim, work on property tax reform. 2533, this one extends statutory timeline for inspection of public records when the exemption is based on attorney-client privilege. We've been supportive of this one for a number of years. Yeah, it's got a work session for the 7th. 3518, nothing new on that one from the last time we met. 593, this bill is likely dead, and so council took the position to oppose any repeals, any efforts to repeal the statute enacted by House Bill 3115. And 593 had not been scheduled for a work session before the 21st, which is the deadline, and so I'm considering the bill probably not going to track that one anymore. On Senate Bill 916, that one, as you recall, at our last meeting, we changed from opposed to neutral. It's out of the Senate and it's moved on to the House and Labor Workforce Standards Committee, and where it's waiting to get a public hearing set. And LOC continues to work to identify the fiscal impact and see if it'll what could happen out of that if there's further negotiation. 3031, which is the governor's housing production bill. We supported it, and it's got a -2 amendment. It's moved from committee on the 25th. It simply isn't as it has fiscal. It's got $100 million fiscal on it.
Question on that one
Yes.
is that I read somewhere that's including looking at SROs.
No. That's in a different bill.
Different bill. Okay.
And we'll get to that one.
Thank you.
It's at 2138.
Okay.
So the 3031 is money for housing infrastructure projects, and so we've been very supportive of that. It's kind of the next iteration of when the legislature provided funding for Crow Road infrastructure projects. Okay, 2967, potential work session on the 7th, and that's the landlords charging an applicant screening charge. It's a prohibition on that. Senate Bill 49, we moved to neutral position. It is scheduled for, had a work session yesterday. It got gutted. There was enough problematic things in it that it got gutted, and all it has is some new, the state's building code structural committee, 2 new positions that got added onto that. So we were neutral and just moved it to a priority 2. 2138. So 2138 is the governor's middle housing bill, and that's the one with the SROs, and it's got a lot of things in it. And as we discussed last time, it's a neutral and moved to support if amended. It had, and I should clarify, amended in a manner that is not counter to council direction and city adopted city code. We've got a -2 on out. We're reviewing that. One of the challenges is that Alyssa Hanson, our planning director, was out last week for spring break, and now Lauren Summers, our assistant city attorney, who does reviews a lot of the in-depth legal land use pieces, she's out for spring break this week, and so we're working on getting a review. And there's a -2 and a -4 amendment meeting, and so that's going to just continue to work its way through. There is an item on SROs and in there. And I've been asked by the speaker's local staff, John Prince, to come and spend some time to discuss the issue related to Project Here in Town with Pastor Gabe, Everyone Village, and the pilot there. So I've reached out internally to planning and BPS and community development staff to identify where we are on that, get an update, and then spend time with John, because if there is a need to amend the statute, then now is the time. We don't believe that we need to amend the statute based upon what has been discussed for the pilot project, that we just need to do local code amendments or decisions. And so we're working to get onto that right now.
That's one I'm very interested in tracking. I just see the SRO model, architecturally designed and engineered structures. It's a way of producing housing, good housing, quickly to get people into housing.
And the speaker's interested as well.
Good.
And so we're working to figure on out what's there, like who's on first, that's on second, I was on third, right? So then 5550, that's the budget rebalancing bill, per road changes, that's moving forward. 3062. This one, second public hearing, it's gonna have a work session on the 3rd. There had not been an amendment posted before when I put this on out the other day. And so I need to go back and take a look. I don't think it's gonna move at this point. Senate Bill 6 and Senate Bill 974, Senate Bill, more than likely Senate Bill 6 is gonna die. It's not gonna move forward. It sets a 45-day shot clock on municipalities review and approval of building permit. Highly problematic the way that it's written. There's not a lot of interest to amend it, and so we've been in opposition. 974, there's more interest to try to move that bill from the opponents, and it has impacts on setting a shot clock for land use applications. So League of Oregon Cities leading the opposition, and I've asked staff to review and give feedback on the, I think we've got a -2 amendment that's out now. So keeping working on this. Okay, public safety 3243. This was balance billing brought up previously, and it was scheduled for a work session on yesterday, and I haven't updated that, so I'll take a look at that. I'm assuming they've moved that. I'll let you know if there was anything that was changed out of it. And then there was just some of these non-priority one bills that we just were keeping track of and navigating. Any questions on this before I jump into the U of O item?
Oh, good job. A lot going on.
I'll just flag something for communications in case it shows up that we did have the opportunity to talk with Senator Manning about the Bridge Meadows project, this SB 229. And I noticed today, completely different organization, but with the exact same name in Portland, which does transitional housing, is closing. So on the cover of the lead story, I think of the Oregonian today, was about Bridge Meadows Transitional Housing Solutions and that nonprofit closing. I only mention it because that could be a real point of confusion for this project in the larger milieu of things moving quickly and not understanding this intergenerational, multi-generational housing solution, which would be new and serve people here in comparison to something else happening in Portland Metro with the exact same name, doing something in the same space-ish. Yeah, in case anyone mentions to you that they've heard that nonprofit went out of business, that's not the one.
We don't need any more confusion.
So the University of Oregon has reached out to me and asked, they want to move forward a resolution. So resolution, much like at city council, a resolution versus a code update. Resolution is non-binding, it's more ceremonial. So there's they want to move forward this month with a resolution that would honor and recognize and celebrate the University of Oregon Women's Indoor Track and Field Championship, NCAA, and yeah, NCAA Track and Field Indoor Championship. And they've asked the city of Eugene to support that. And so in our process, going through processes, the kind of most appropriate way for us to take a position on that to support would be to bring it to the IGR and say, and that's really what it's going to say, something to akin to. There's going to be a bunch of therefore whereas, and then there will be a therefore that we celebrate, and it'll be a resolution that will go before the House Committee on Rules. And then it'll get moved out of rules and it'll go to the floor of the House. It'll be a House resolution and they vote on it, and there will be a day when it gets voted, and more than likely the U of O is going to have on the 24th of this month their lobby day, and that's when they're going to target that. And so brought it to this group if there's support to say, yes, we believe that that's in alignment with city council goals. There's a precedent that we've had where we hosted when the men's football team went to the national championships about a decade ago. We worked with U of O and we hosted a celebration downtown, a parade. So there's been a precedent for city council support and the city of Eugene support for honoring and recognizing the accomplishments of the University of Oregon's teams. And I didn't find anything in our policies that was in opposition to providing support. And so if this body thinks it's a good thing, I'm gonna say yes, and then I can work with Mayor Knudsen to draft a letter. She can deliver that letter and or also provide testimony as a former document too. I think that's one of the other parts that the U of O is actually interested in. So
Yeah, we've done that before. I mean, volleyball, all the rest. Anytime they, won championships and that kind of thing, that seems to be just pro forma.
The U of O is an important partner here locally, and they contribute to our economy, our quality of life, our culture. I think it's important that we support them when we can, and this seems like a pretty small ask. Do you need a motion for that?
sure. A motion to support, and like I said, a motion to support the University of Oregon's resolution recognizing the women's track, indoor track and field.
So I move the resolution.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Great. That takes care of that. Thank you.
Very formal for a class of two.
Yes, yes. Dotting the i's, crossing the t's. Okay,
Yeah.
that's done for number 3.
Okay, number 4, and thank you, Ethan. Very good report. A lot of detail there, so I appreciate that. Number 4, 2025 Federal United Front update, and I see we've got federal priorities handbook. I'm surprised it's that thick these days.
Yep, it gets thicker every year.
Get
So-
Post-it notes.
Federal priorities, we hold them dear.
We've got a lot, and these are all of our United Front partners, and so the updates, so you'll find some Eugene things in there. So this is our annual booklet. Mayor Knudsen, Matt Rodriguez, and I, Assistant City Matt Rodriguez and I are heading out. Matt's going to be there early, but Mayor and I are heading out on Sunday. The meetings run Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then fly back on Thursday. In addition to the book, I also provided a draft of the meetings that are scheduled. And in this document, Mayor, I've got an updated document where I've added Eugene talking points. And so on each of these meetings that Eugene is supposed to attend, we've got a list of what the priorities are that I've gone through, and then we'll have a 1-pager or a document. And so, for instance, when we meet with Andy McCullough, Director of Federal Affairs, Governor Kotek, more than likely, the top three things that we'll talk to Annie about are CDS requests are congressionally directed spending, which is Eugene Airport improvements. One is taser and body cam and dash cam replacement for EPD, and then the third is the Clear Lake Road. And so we will have graphic assets on each of those. And so, as you can tell, we've got meetings on when Monday is fairly. We spend in the morning focused in on reviewing Tuesday and Wednesday's meetings, going through all the talking points, talking order. A lot of coordination when it's going to be all of the different partners. So everyone, save for 4J, is going. Eugene, Springfield, Lane County, LTD, Willamette Lane, and Springfield schools are all going to be there. And so just when you got a number of these meetings are going from place to place, you want to have your coordination set and prepared. So that's what Monday meeting is set for. Then we meet with Annie McCullough, and then on Tuesday, off to the races. And we're going to be meeting with Forest Service. We'll talk about fire prevention activities in the WUI, the Wildland Urban Interface. When we go to Economic Development Administration, we'll talk about Clear Lake Road, but we'll also talk about we received an EDA grant under Biden administration's Build Back Better. It was pandemic funds, and that's building mountain bike trails in over on Harley, Susan Harvey Park. So we'll give updates on that. The next one that we'll be jumping into, Department of Transportation, we'll talk about Eugene Airport and also Franklin Boulevard updates. We will not go to NACO. EPA, we'll talk about brownfields and the Brownfields Regional Brownfields Coalition program.
Hold it back just a second,
Okay.
Ethan. So when we're talking about Franklin Boulevard, specifically, what are we talking? We're talking about the infrastructure pieces that we've been talking about with roundabouts.
We will give an update on the Franklin Boulevard raise grant that we received from the U.S. Department of Transportation.
Okay. So, and within that grant, what are the particulars that we're looking to be funded? Projects.
That was to redesign and rebuild the section, I think, from
That's to reinforce the
well, LTD was
The
a
band.
partner. Yeah, redesign, reinforce, put in and the roundabouts, all of the redesign, rebuild of Franklin Boulevard route from Walnut over to connect with Springfield, and I think even
That's the
on
first
this side,
phase.
I mean, even further.
So how many roundabouts are we talking altogether? I'm sorry if I cut you off.
No, I just was, because I was asking, because at the last LTD strategic planning meeting, we were talking about this. And specifically, I know that Springfield is moving forward with a roundabout on Mississippi. And then we're talking about other pieces that are further down, going west on Franklin Boulevard coming into Eugene.
Yes.
And part of that is infrastructure to reinforce and support the MX pathway.
Yes. That is true.
Okay, that's what I wanted to kind of get some clarity on as we
Yeah, and the
move forward, because again, we're still I'm still hearing from a number of the business folks over there on Franklin Boulevard about, you know, the whole idea of putting a roundabout in front of highly trafficked areas there, particularly in the commercial and retail sections of Franklin.
Yeah, and so we use this from the last year. It's just an update off of the city's website on the Franklin Boulevard project. And so we're just utilizing what the project documents are. And what they're looking at is phase one. And yeah, I mean, there is an item related to feedback on the roundabouts, but I think that that's still where the city's going in terms of what that project will entail. And so all we're doing is we're sharing what the most updated elements of the project are.
Okay.
So, and I can send this on over to you. I'm just looking at it. It's the materials that went on out from them
Okay.
on their update in terms of where they are on, and it was 11.4 million from the federal raise grant, 5 million from LTD, and then there was roughly 5 million from city funds. So we'll give that update on
And
that.
most of that is the rebuild and repair for the MX pathway, right?
Yeah, and there's like the
Okay.
right there.
Yeah, I see it. Gotcha.
So that's right.
Yeah.
Okay. Moving on.
Move on.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. On to EPA. We'll talk about brownfields. And also we'll just be curious what they want to talk about. I mean, I don't know if there's what that's going to look like.
Can you ask them while they're back, are the reductions that we're seeing, is that going to, what kind of an impact is that going to have on the J.H. Baxter process? Because we're in the queue right now with trying to get Superfund status and get that fully cleaned up. And it'd be nice to know what they know about funding reductions and elimination of staff, and what's that going to do to that contaminated area.
I'll reach out to the DQ folks as well. Part of that's going there.
DEQ be good, but the EPA is who's going to call the ball on the Superfund. The DEQ is taking care of the individual residents through their orphan fund, and EPA. In fact, are you on that list of getting the weekly updates from Randy Natus?
I haven't been getting those, so.
Okay.
My understanding though is I think the
Okay.
the DEQ, in terms of the, and this based upon prior experience going back to EPA and asking them questions, and they say, well, we brought in your Oregon team and it's DEQ folks, and they're like, yeah, you need to come talk to us about that. Okay. So I want to just touch base with DEQ.
Just see, I mean, I think this is a different, and I'm aware of that, but this seemed like a very different process. There's a definite line between what DEQ is doing and what EPA is doing. And quite frankly, I've been in government a lot of years, and I've never seen two separate entities work as well together as they are right now. I mean, it's DEQ is going after cleaning up people's yards and getting that taken care of. And EPA, Randy Natus has been like clockwork, sometimes more than one report a week that he's cranking out on their progress. But their progress is only going to go so far. It's not going. What they're doing is they're taking down the built infrastructure, but they aren't excavating and cleaning out the contaminated soil that's still leaching into the groundwater. So that's going to be something that we need addressed, and nobody has the money for that except the feds.
Yep. I got it added to the list, and we'll have that as one of our talking points.
Thank you. And that's no complaints. EPA has been doing just a bang up job from my perspective. Good communication.
Yeah, until they get their legs cut out.
Well, that's what I would like to.
I mean,
No, I appreciate
Without
it.
saying
that's
too
what
much,
they
I just
have in the
would like
last
to-
6 weeks, Randy.
Well, that's why I expected this to be on a post-it note.
I appreciate you bringing that on up. It's appropriate time to pull it on in there.
Right. And however we can support them on that.
Yeah.
I mean, I realize I can't speak for the full council, although my sense is my colleagues are very concerned about what's going on.
Oh, yeah.
National Endowment for the Arts, we've got some updates on programs that fund here in Eugene, and so we'll probably have a staffer that will join that group. And then there's meeting with Congresswoman Hoyle, and that we'll focus in on our congressionally directed spending asks, specifically the one that we'll put in front of her, which is going to be funding for Clear Lake Road. So, and then Senator Wyden, we will be discussing. We'll focus mostly on. We won't have a lot of time with him, but with staff, we'll focus on the congressionally directed spending asks again. In the past, we had done more related to telecom, but we're just kind of taking a big step back from this right now. On the policy standpoint, knowing that it's going to be an uphill battle. And then same with Senator Merkley, we'll be focusing in, and our assumption is that both Senator Wyden and Senator Merkley and Congresswoman Hoyle giving us the picture of where they are in BC.
Can I flag something for Senator Merkley?
Sure.
His office has been working closely with Everyone Village
Yep.
on the whole SRO piece and trying to get the definition of housing in HUD to include the SROs. So that might be an interesting question of where they are on that. I know they've been meeting regularly with Gabe and some of the people involved in that process. Just so we're not working at cross purposes inadvertently.
USDA rural development, we're added on that one. I don't think we're gonna go. Rural issues at this point. I don't. Steve Adams and I were talking about that. See there. Or Eugene to turn that. NRPA, we'll go to that one, focusing on our lead park and the WUI fire fuels reductions. HUD, I'm pulling information right now. It's your post-it note statement is appropriate to HUD in terms of what, and so it's really like approaching with curiosity. We've got some of our HIP materials, the housing implementation pipeline. We've in years previous, we would take a policy memo that says here's the things that we're looking to get remedy on administratively within HUD, and I reached out to staff and they said no, it's not current. So let's work on that. So we will attend and we'll have something, and this SRO piece might be in there as well.
Great.
We're going to then go to the White House complex and meet with White House Intergovernmental Affairs, and so more than likely be in the Eisenhower building, and I think our focus there will be Eugene Airport, TASER, our congressionally directed spending projects, Clear Lake, Eugene Airport, and funding for tasers and body cams replacement. Department of Ed, we're not going to go.
We're there to receive you.
Yeah. APTA, and it's
LCD.
After School Alliance, we'll probably get added to that one. I think that we've got some projects. I reached out to LRCS director Josh Bates to find out what our programs are, if we've got something, and then join that one. House Transportation Infrastructure Committee, I think probably ask potentially Matt to join that one, or Mayor if you're available. If LTD is open to having just joining and supporting a discussion on transit in our community. And then we move on over, and there's some pending meetings, which we'll probably get. And so Department of Justice and the cops office, DHS, Bus Coalition, FTA, Trust for Public Lands, and BLM, National Endowment of the Arts, and then US. So those will more than likely get added on into Tuesday and Wednesday schedule. But so that'll be part of the trip, fast and furious. And I was joking with Mayor Peterson that our trip to Salem was the warm up for Disney.
This is the warm up for Eugene Marathon.
There you go.
Well, thank you. Are there questions for you?
I don't see anything with NLC in here. Are you guys not doing anything with National League? Or
We,
just doing it with the mayor's conference?
I think we're just because of Mayor Knutsen's interest and we'll be in town for that and so no, we haven't been planning to meet with MLC.
Okay.
Then I had a question. I mean, this has nothing to do really with city business, but it certainly can affect our constituents. Have you heard anything from Lane County Health or State Health about federal funding tap getting turned off already for them?
No, I mean, well,
OHA
OHA,
announced 177 million
okay.
in money pulled back maybe end of last week.
I'm curious about county. And the reason I'm asking, my daughter works for Baltimore County Health and she said they've just been gutted. So it is gonna have an effect on, you know, when the next disease pops up and spread. And I'm just wondering what they're thinking and how we support our county health, because, you know, you can manage an epidemic or a pandemic, or just throw caution to the wind and have it ravage your community.
Well, I know they're pulling money out of FEMA because so my daughter-in-law got a layoff notice.
Hmm.
So
They're
if
not
we have an
likely to have any more
emergency
hurricanes.
situation, you know, I mean, they're not gonna have staff on the ground to, you know, address it. I mean, it's like FEMA's supposed to be the first on the ground, other than the first responders to go in and
Yeah.
deal with this.
Well,
this
fire,
thing.
LA Fire, for example, is, they're not getting their reimbursements. You've got a $9.5 million overtime liability.
I'll just flag for the two of you that it's not for a couple of weeks, but we do have a session at council, an update from the city manager, looking at this bigger picture of impacts. I think the challenge of that, as Ethan alluded to, is something that two of you already know, which is many of them are not direct challenges to the city of Eugene, but they're direct challenges to our constituents and community members and proximate partners. And a lot of services delivered within Lane County, probably 3/4 of them are delivered here. So there is, in terms of just numbers and points of interaction with people. So that update is coming, and I think it'll be hard to get our arms around in terms of action items at council because of the lack of direct engagement. But I do also think that some of our work too, and next week we'll be doing this with the United Front trip, talking with our partners about how we want to stand up sort of communication structure and relational organization, so that we're prepared for how it is that we do collectively respond. I've mentioned that at the Poverty and Homelessness Board meeting most recently, and it was very well received by all of the folks around that table, because one of the challenges is going to be how to even talk about these evolving circumstances that are so enormous. Social Security, Oregon Health Plan, funding for basic, really, basic systems and services that people expect continued uninterrupted access to.
You've described it well, and my intent with asking the question certainly isn't thinking we're gonna be able to pick up anything, but it'd be nice to know that the shoe is falling before it hits. Yeah, I mean, an event happens and all of a sudden you call and nobody comes. It'd be nice to know that ahead of time, just so we can, be prepared and also be able to explain to our public why it's happening and what's going on.
You wake up every morning, it's something different every day.
I think that's the other big takeaway is that there's an action, and then there's an impact, and then there's what is the further impact? What's the remedy?
Yes.
And that remedy piece generally takes some time.
Well, what we need to know is, okay, if something hits, if this is gone, where do we direct people? And because health, the health piece really isn't ours, but, we definitely need to be able to get help from someone, even if it's a much greater reduced level.
I think the city, we've been doing a lot of work collaboratively with counterparts
Okay,
at
good.
Lane County. So Christy Hammett, Assistant City Manager, meets regularly with Eve Gray, who operates the
Right.
behavioral health and not just that, but all the health services. And so there's a lot of interest in having collaborative, connective, in informing one another. I know that Brooke was meeting with Jason Davis today. He's their spokesperson. So, and we're bringing on our new spokesperson in the next month, within this month. And so I think that we'll have that, more of that muscle within the city and city manager's office, and then the existing relationships that we're having with the county. And then, so you're saying the poverty and homelessness board, there's a lot of other opportunities for collaboration. I know that Sarah meets with the county administrator on a team basis. So I think it's there. It's just needs, your points well taken, and share that with my chain of command. Interest to stay informed. So we're not
Right, at the appropriate level, and part of, and I admit, this is me figuring out, still navigating my space. I'm used to having a lot more information than I have as a counselor. I mean, and I had people I could just pick up the phone and call and ask, but I was constantly getting fed really important strategic information that helped me run the fire department. And it's kind of like I got a pillow tied around my head. Just can't quite get the detail that maybe I don't need, that
I
I'm more
think the
comfortable
challenge
with.
of that is that detail is that the information coming forward is not in the same pattern
Yeah.
of behavior and service that you are making that
Right, no,
comparison to. And only to say that I think the challenge is, I mean, obviously action, and then judicial reaction or legal recourse, and then injunction is very confusing.
Yeah.
Especially when actions continue that are still in bounds of what could be arguably legal or arguably illegal. But I think that that community challenge is that I think everyone is trying to figure out, like, what is actually happening and what is the intention behind what's occurring, because we're thinking about it as service oriented and service continuity being an important value.
Yeah.
And in some cases, it does not appear to be a value. There's at least no communicated plan. So until that comes forward as a communicated plan, it's hard to know how we can be in any way, shape, or form effective in relation to that new reality.
That's exactly my point. It just feel like we've got a white key out there trying to find my way a lot of the time. That's not pointing fingers at anybody. It's just, I think, part of its position.
I'm very curious, our conversations next week. I know a big part of our responsibility in this trip is to be bringing our united front of communications and priorities to DC. And I'm also very curious to know what, if any, vision or clarity of path in different conversations exists, or if we leave meetings feeling like that was a very one-way conversation with no sense of the port or field or
Right.
arena that it was landing in, and we'll just see.
Well, thank you.
Just to give you a preview, Mayor, I mean, the last time that I was, it wasn't, it's like, it was several years ago when the last iteration of this administration was in power. It was pretty much a one-way conversation. It was like, no, this is what we're doing. There's no give and take. This is what we're doing. So,
It's not a negotiation.
no, it's not.
All right.
Anything good to go to the order?
That's our second to last thing. Did you have any? I don't, Mayor?
We will travel swiftly and come back with stories.
Be safe.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, we're adjourned.
Thank you all. Thank you, Cherish.
Thank you.
Thank you, Cherish.